sure. Okay. Welcome back to the Views from the Gravel Lot podcast. This is episode number 32. Recapping yet another very disappointing Buffalo Bills season. Well, in the sense that they were so close. And once again, the Bills have fallen short. To nobody's surprise as a Bills fan. This is nothing new to us. And yet again, the Bills are leaving us here with a lot of depression. We wanted to record right after, and I kind of thought about it, and I said, hey, let's think about this. Let's, channel our thoughts and really, reflect on this game and this season before we kind of pour it all out right away. And I felt like this was the best way to do it. So that's why we're recording here on a Wednesday night. But before we get into everything, I kind of wanted to just give a brief thank you to everybody that supported us throughout the season, all the followers, the family, friends of the show. Really appreciate everybody tuning in and giving us this. Yeah, the guests, of course, giving us this platform and an opportunity to talk about the Bills. And as we continue to grow this, we really enjoy doing this. It's a big passion of ours, and it's been something we've really liked doing for a long time now. And yeah, like you said, thank you for the guests. We had Greg Thompson on this season, Cardinals Update. Peter DiBiase is a good friend and fan of the show. Many others. Chris Collins was a great guest. And then Trent, our other co-host, who's not on with us tonight. We want to thank him for his time, and thank you, Mike, for your time talking about this, because, it does take time, and we do appreciate everybody tuning in. But here we are again. And you had told me this earlier when I was talking to you. You were basically saying, I knew this was going to happen again. It was like a movie. You just kind of saw the ending before it was even going to happen. And here we are. The Bills lose to the Chiefs 32-29. Mike, I'm going to let you take the floor here. Where do we even start? I mean, just a disaster. It was there to be had, for sure.
What's fucked up is I think we all thought we had to win this game because it wouldn't happen a fourth time.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a deja vu moment it is.
It's rough.
Four is just the unlucky number.
It's tough.
It's the worst number. I mean, I don't know. I feel so much towards that game, towards just the team in itself. Like, honestly, in these games, you never really can blame Allen. But the first half of this game, to me, just felt like they not just him, but they just weren't ready. And it's like, how are you not ready? Like,
yeah,
that first drive should have went way smoother. Whatever happened there with the play calling was horrible. It felt like the start of the Ravens game, like, completely. And as soon as I got that, like, feeling, I was just like, here we go again. Are they going to be able to dig themselves out of the hole? And they almost did.
They did. They almost did. I had said before, all leading up to this all week, this is probably, and you might feel the same way, this was probably the most confident I felt about beating the Chiefs in all these playoff games, just because of, in terms of a matchup perspective, like, they had a lot of the weaknesses, for the Chiefs. The Chiefs really struggle against sort of these man beaters. And look, the Bills were able to run the ball on them. They found the weakness sort of later in the game. It took till the third quarter, but you don't want to have that be a playoff. You don't want that to be your recipe for success, finding out the answer after a half has already passed. And it was working. They were running the ball to the outside, and they figured out some of these, plays that worked out for them. And, the offense, I would say, for, 75% of the game played very well. 29 points in a playoff game is very respectable. Do you want to get 2-point conversions? Sure. Do I not want them to throw a fade ball to Keon Coleman against Trent McDuffie?
4 times.
No. But, we can sit here and nitpick the offense, but at the end of the day, 29 points, I feel like if your coach is a defensive guy, and you're he's putting all of his chips, and they invest all these resources on the defense, and they built this team to beat the Chiefs, that should be enough. That's just my 2 cents.
What bothers me is that was the most points they scored all season. All season.
The Chiefs?
Yes, that is the most points they scored. Like, how?
Yeah. It's frustrating to really think about it when you look at the numbers too, because, like, This Chief defense doesn't give up points that often. I think it was like 26 or 27 points. The Bills are like the only team to score more than that in like 2 seasons. I might be wrong with that, but it's something around there.
Absurd.
And it's like, you're sort of doing it. You're beating a really good defense, and it's just not enough. You just feel it's just a couple plays here and there, and that's just kind of the story of the Buffalo Bills. Every fan that watches this team knows that inevitable heartbreak is going to happen. I wanted to go in to Sean McDermott because both of us. I want to say this respectfully because I don't want to go too crazy here. But both of us obviously have been. It's been known that
very critical.
We're not the biggest Sean McDermott guys in the world.
Not really.
Do I think there's certainly potential for a worse coach if we swap him out with somebody? Sure. Could we get a better coach? Sure. But this is who we have. This is our head coach, and our owner's Terry Pegula. Is he pulling the trigger on that? Probably not.
No.
So this is who we're stuck with. And it's okay to be critical of Sean McDermott, and I think it's okay to also praise Sean McDermott. He's grown.
Kind of.
He's grown a lot as a leader, as a coach. I feel like he felt more confident as a coach. It felt like more than seasons other. Like, he didn't seem like a deer in the headlights in a lot of these moments.
He wasn't this game.
He wasn't.
Ben, he went for it on countless fourth downs.
Yeah.
He went for 2 twice. I mean, he literally, how many times were we just put the game in Allen's hands? Just put it in his hands, and he did.
And they did.
Every opportunity that he had to do so, he did. And that's why I'm not sitting here being like, all right, he's got to go. Like, that wasn't good enough. We got out-coached. I'm not saying we didn't.
For sure.
But I don't think Sean McDermott's the reason we got out-coached. I think the offensive schematic game plan was all over the place and extremely unorganized, and just you went. I know I said last week, don't be afraid to abandon the run, and they did, but they did it immediately, and they went off script from what they've done that's made them successful the entire season. What made them successful the entire season was establishing the run, opening the offense up. Right after you got to, I mean, it worked great. And they just completely abandoned that. I don't know why. And, like you said, we can nitpick a lot of different plays. It's like, okay, how many times did they push in that game? 5?
4 or 5 times minimum.
A lot of time. And it was to the left every time. And, when you get stopped on it 3-4 times, I know you practice it a certain way. Is it that fucking hard to do it to the right one time? I mean, just give it a shot. Like, you went to the left Josh Allen had 3 fumbles. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. It's like schematically, he did not put us in a position to succeed. And I know Joe Brady collectively had a very strong season as a coordinator, but this has been the problem with Joe Brady in his career, is it gets stagnant, and this is kind of what he does. And I'm not saying he's a bad OC. I'm just saying,
for sure,
maybe he's not all that.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to be overly critical of Joe Brady, again, because I just feel like he has really found what the strength of this team is. But again, they just, turn their backs on that. Like, I feel like, if you're confidently going with James Cook full 4 quarters, this result of this game, I firmly believe it's going in the Bills' favor. Like, the Chiefs could not stop James Cook. He wanted it. You saw how he stretched out on that outside run at the goal line. Like, he gave it everything he had, and like, to not give that player more opportunity, it felt like a disservice to him, and it felt like a disservice to the Bills as a whole. Not to put that player, because he was the second best player on that team, maybe the best player.
What do you think of that last drive? Do you think that they should have given him the ball?
So when we talk about, we're basically getting into the coaches now and trying to be subjective and analyze this the right way. I do want to respect what Kansas City has with Spags. Like, I think he's probably the best defensive coordinator ever. Like, and I'm not trying to be biased because I'm a Bills fan and like we've fallen to this team 4 times, but the balls that he has to call some of these blitzes and the way he does it and the way he disguises it, and you don't know where the pressure is coming from. Even like Josh Allen, who's been very, touted as this really advanced quarterback pre-snap. He can really distinguish a lot of different coverages and different looks. Spags was able to confuse him on that play. And granted, Josh made he made the throw. The ball was in Kincaid's head. We can get into that. But like the throw was made, but it shouldn't have been that hard. And I think the Bills not having 6 offensive linemen, which is something they like to do a lot, like that pressure against the 5-man, I think it was a 5-man offensive line.
Like you're not giving him
a chance. You just have to know the way Spags operates. Even Tony Romo was saying it all game long. He's coming after Josh. And I just felt like they just didn't have the right protection package in. Maybe you slide in a Reggie Gilliam as a protector. Like I know they like Ty Johnson back there, and I believe he was in the play, but you just need to buy yourself an extra second or two to get that play to Shakir. And it is a first down. You've seen the dots. He's open. But
you know what they said post game was they were coming out in that formation and that look all game long. And they were even doing it in the first matchup this season.
Are you talking about the Chiefs or the Bills formation?
The Chiefs defense. They were coming out in that formation all game long, and they were coming out of it in the original matchup this season, and they never sent those 2 guys.
No, but that was the tricky thing. Yeah.
Right. But at the same time,
you have to be ready for it.
That's where you got out-coached.
Yeah.
Like what makes Spagnuolo a great defensive coordinator is he can
adapt.
Situational genius. Like when he's not just going to run what he has, he's going to analyze the current moment that he's in, and he's going to adjust properly.
For sure.
And we did not the entire game, it felt like.
He will definitely, and that's I think the biggest difference. And I think it will be a good opportunity for Joe Brady to learn, because it's he's a young coordinator, he's a young play caller. And it's an opportunity for him to be like, hey, I got to be able to adapt throughout the course of the game. And, Spagnuolo, he's won 4 Super Bowls, I think. He won with the Giants. He's a genius. He really is.
He's great.
And it amazes me that no team is even interviewing him. I know he had a very unsuccessful tenure with the Rams, but you want to stop the Chiefs, you might want to take away their strongest piece. Maybe. But, I mean, he's had interviews in the past. Like, you got to think there's got to be a team.
Think about it. They had Bieniemy. Yeah. He could get no traction whatsoever, and now no traction seemingly whatsoever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A bit.
But, I mean, sure, you can argue he's older, but, like, dude,
Pete Carroll just got fucking hired, so.
Yeah, I know, he's 73, so anybody could get hired. I mean, we've seen who's been in the office for the United States of America for the president, so.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it's like I said, I don't want to be too critical of Joe Brady, because I do think he was able to find some ways to get some points for the Bills. 29 points, like I said, it should be enough.
It is warranted, though.
But you can nitpick here and there, but I don't want to get too deep into it. But we look at the defensive side of the ball. Let's just talk about the defense specifically. We talked about the coaches.
Such a juicy conversation.
Oh boy, this is gonna be fun, because this is something we've punched at all season long with these certain players that we've talked about all season long, and how they did in this moment. And we'll talk about each of them. We'll kind of get into it. We talked about the coaches a little bit. Now let's talk about the players and focus on the defense in this game, because my God, was it a horrible game? Just from every standpoint,
actually,
like just down to the technique, like the X's and O's, the simplicity of our defense, which is the strength of this defense is trusting your technique, making the right play, not getting beat by the big
Ben, there is no true strength to this defense.
It didn't show up in this game at the very least.
There is not one thing you could look at throughout the duration of the 20 games we played this year where you can be like, you know what? That was great every game.
This is they don't show that. Like, at least when you go back and you look at some of the previous teams this team has, like, you had a Micah Hyde and a Jordan Poyer, you felt the level of comfort knowing you had the talent that was in place. And you just knew deep down, yes, they could get beat, but like it's way less likely than it is now with the guys they have on the field. I guess I'll start up front, because I do want to talk about this defensive line, because I feel like every single year, Mike, is the biggest letdown in this game. How biggest
the fuck
letdown.
Is the defensive line still this inconsistent after 6 fucking years?
I mean, we talk about first-round picks, second-round picks, third-round picks,
free
$120 million spent. Like, it is not getting better.
At all.
They'll have their moments, right? Like, I think Ed Oliver had a decent game.
Yeah.
But, like, that can't be your only good player against the Chiefs offensive line. Last week, there was Mahomes, like, pressured unreal. Like, the Texans were getting home like nobody's business.
Yep.
The Bills, once you feel about this game, like, hey, we're going to get pressure. No.
0.
And, the biggest thing that drove me nuts, and I'm sure everybody knows what I'm about to mention here, is Greg Rousseau.
Yep.
Why are you breaking contain?
Why are you 6'8" and you can't hold a fucking contain?
That is the exact reason we drafted you. We talk about it. We drafted him following the original matchup in the AFC Championship. We knew the Bills, they needed more pieces up front. Go get this alien freak who can knock down passes, do an excellent job of setting the edge, and he does all these things very well. But in this moment, in this game specifically, and if you want to pay this guy, I think this is definitely something that's going to come up in the conversations, even with being when they do have these conversations, is, hey, biggest game of your life, you probably had the worst game as a pro of your career.
But he does this. I mean, this is who he is.
I don't think that's doing it justice, because I do think he had a good year. I think you can't just erase everything that's happened between now and week one. Like, he put together a strong year.
6 games.
But I think he had a good year. I honestly do. But I think if you really, because I try not to be just put too much my eggs in this basket in this game. I get it. It's recent. It's a playoff game. But you got to deliver in these moments. You got to be there for your team, and that's the difference right now between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes can rely on Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce didn't even have a great game, but he can rely on a guy like Chris Jones, coordinator like Steve Spagnuolo to come through for him.
George Karlaftis.
And that's not to take away from Mahomes, because he's otherworldly. There's no denying that. I'm not going to sit up here and say, Allen's better than Mahomes, because he's not.
There's an extremely strong chance Patrick Mahomes goes down as the greatest quarterback of all time.
Very, very true.
It's starting to become real.
But I think the biggest separator between these two, because they're both amazing quarterbacks, nobody's denying that. Anybody that says any differently or tries to be different, you're just being stupid. You just got to stop talking. The biggest difference is these players coming through in these moments. The Bills just don't have those pieces. And once again, you got a guy like Xavier Worthy, who we traded to the Chiefs. And I don't want to play this game because it's been only a year, but we're talking about an AFC Championship game, and his impact versus a guy like Keon Coleman, that might be the difference between winning and losing.
Absurd. I mean, 4 jump balls did not come down with one. I get it. Some of them were triple covered. Yeah. But you're supposed to be the guy
that's your skill set. That is your skill set. And, I know we're kind of getting a little off track because we were trying to talk about this defense.
Let's stick to the defense. I'm going to ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to name 4 names, and you tell me the first word that comes to mind for each player. Greg Rousseau.
Meh.
Ed Oliver. AJ Epinesa.
Depth.
Von Miller.
Get him out.
And what's one word that you could use for all of them?
Mid.
And inconsistent.
Mid and inconsistent. You're right. And
that is a problem.
You need guys that can deliver in these moments.
You need guys.
And I do think there was players on this defense that came through for this team. They did their part. But again, it's an 11-man unit. Everybody needs to be good. And I've always said it, you're as good as your weakest link. And the Bills' weakest link is Kyrie Elam. And my God.
Holy shit.
Why is he staying in the game? Why is he staying in the game?
He's so bad.
We have a guy. I'm like, I don't want to be the guy. Oh, you get the guy off the bench. But Jamarcus Ingram had a pick 6, man.
I literally was mentioning him all game.
Give him a chance. I don't know whoever's watching this show. If you saw the clip of Juju Smith-Schuster getting open against Kyrie,
what I was going to say.
You want to watch it because he's playing Dancing with the Stars.
Murdered him.
Oh my God. It's Juju Smith-Schuster. It's not like we're talking about Cooper Kupp or some of the best pristine route runners in the league.
It's like 32-year-old.
It's a 5th-string wide receiver who's running a very simple route. And Kyrie Elam's just fallen 15 yards that way What are you doing, dude?
Juju was butt naked, by the way. He didn't even have to
go
for the jump ball.
And that's the crazy thing.
He was butt naked.
You're exactly
why didn't
right.
he throw it right to Juju? Because there was no one near him.
I saw that on the replay. I'm like, damn, the easier throw would have been there. We wouldn't have been complaining about the refs.
Ben, literally, he came off the line. He probably went 7 yards, completely dusted him, and then had the entirety of the rest of the field. And Hollywood Brown ate his lunch every fucking snap.
So did Worthy. Like, literally every Chiefs receiver had their
You're supposed to be a man corner. They literally did not make you play zone. They let you man up the whole game. The whole game. You are a man corner. You were I get it. You weren't drafted in a schematic fit, and that is why he has not seemingly worked out here. But they put you in a scheme that has been successful for you for your entire life, and you looked like shit. You didn't look like shit against one guy, 2 guys. You looked terrible against Juju, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and it's just like no one. You could not guard anybody.
And falls back to the coaching. Like, how do you sit up there and say, hey, we see this guy, he's not confident, he's playing like crap. How can you sit there and just say, hey, let's just stick with it? Like, to me, this is the biggest moment of your season. You have to be willing to have the guts to say, hey, Jamarcus Ingram, what are you doing? Like, he was dressed. He wasn't a scratch. Like, he was good to go.
Because that's not who they are. They don't do that, and that's what's annoying is they don't.
I get sticking to your guns, Mike, but it's the AFC Championship, dude.
I know.
This is the best chance you probably will ever have at beating the Chiefs, and hey, we're talking about a much different game if Christian Benford doesn't get hit by Damar Hamlin.
He probably shouldn't even have played.
Probably not.
To be honest with you, I mean, Christian Benford, if he did not suffer just that unlucky play, maybe they would have been different. But at the same time, now that we're talking about the secondary, that safety tandem might be the worst in football.
I think you can definitely make the case for it.
Damar Hamlin is a good to very good run-stopping safety.
For sure.
When
he can get a good angle.
He has no idea what the fuck he seems to be doing. Cole Bishop, the lights were too bright. Really wasn't expecting much from him.
Honestly, I didn't come away from that game saying, hey, Cole Bishop played like crap.
Right. He was fine. He was fine.
Yeah.
He was
considering the moment and the magnitude of the game, I thought he did okay.
I feel like we have to give Taylor Rapp a lot more credit because he cleaned up a lot of Damar's mistakes throughout this season, and I think he should be someone that's here going forward. Frankly, I'm okay with him being a starter. And to an extent, and I can't even believe I'm going to say it, I'm okay with Damar Hamlin being on this team, but Damar Hamlin needs to be used situationally. Damar Hamlin cannot be your starter.
No. But that's the thing, though, because if you are going to do that with Damar, say, that there's a lot of redundancy then with Bishop because you drafted Bishop to be that defender in the box, use closer to the line of scrimmage. And if that's how you want to use Damar, like, okay, and then you just wasted a draft pick. So to me, I do think Taylor Rapp had a good season. And I actually came away thinking, he had some moments. He plays with some energy. He plays with physicality. I like Taylor Rapp. Does he have some limitations in coverage? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But you're getting a good safety there. And if you can get sort of, I don't know, your version of Micah Hyde, and then you can use Bishop situationally, as a run blitzer, as a sort of like a chess piece, like a Swiss Army knife type player, and then go out and get another safety. I feel very good about that group.
Yeah.
But it was a problem going into the year all year. It was definitely the biggest highlighted weakness going into the camp, OTAs, preseason, something we talked about a lot. What'd you say?
Did Micah dress one time?
No, he did not. And that I honestly don't think they signed him to play. He was just there to be a voice. I genuinely don't think he was ever going to play it down, especially considering
he could physically have even played.
I don't think they wanted him to.
Physically could have even played that, even with where he's at with his neck. Yeah. I feel like I would have rather have had him in those moments than Damar. Even on third down, even if he only played third down. That defense on third down for the last 10 games of the season was one of the worst third down defenses I've seen in my entire life.
It was historically, I want to say, one of the worst probably the worst under McDermott.
It was
don't quote me on that, but it was brutal. I think going back to what stuck out to me was that Rams game. We would get ourselves in situations like we can get off the field, but they would just kill us time and time again. And this secondary, I come away from this game saying, hey, this defense, except the middle level of this defense, needs to improve, like in every area. Like Christian Benford, great number one corner. Defense plays a lot better when he's on the field. Rasul Douglas, I don't care. He can be
great schematic fit, but I could live without you.
I could live without him, and I think there's definitely a better option out there. And I can sit here and say we can upgrade our safety room. Our pass rush needs to be more consistent. So there needs to be a plan in place to say, hey, we need to massively upgrade this defense. Sean McDermott, you're a defensive guy. Like this unit needs to be better. And it's up to Bean and this staff to figure that out. And look, I would say it's more of a coin flip when it comes to that because we've seen the misses they've had. They've certainly had their hits, and I don't want to go sit up here and act like they haven't had any, but more recently as of late, like it's just been few and far between. And
we can't seem to hit on the front four.
They really need to have a good offseason, and I think they haven't had a really good first-round pick in a while. You need to have a good first-round pick. And
who's the last good first-round pick you would consider?
Well, I wouldn't consider it Kincaid. I wouldn't consider it. I wouldn't consider Elam. No. AJ Epinesa, you can't count. I mean, I guess you can technically count Diggs. Would that be your last one? I think that might be your last true because you traded your first round pick for him. I would count that as your selection at that point.
No, because that turned into fucking Jefferson.
Well, I mean, you could play that game, but
so I'm going to go with no. I'm going to say no. I'm going to go with no because in hindsight's 2020, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no because
But like I said, they're just not hitting on those picks, and it's like I said, it's paramount that this front office and this staff is able to assemble a much more talented and trustworthy defense.
I think that's why they were okay with trading back. Yeah. I think they know this team. This team's had great depth for several years now.
Always good depth.
And the team's never been an issue. It had solid depth this season. It had quality depth. It just didn't have quality starters in certain places.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're not going to – I don't think they're going to fix that all this offseason. Like, we're going into this like, all right, this team needs a corner minimum. And
there's not like one clear thing to fix.
Even if you keep Douglas and just go get another depth guy so that Elam doesn't have to be there. Mm-hmm. You're down a corner. You're down a safety, and you're down a true answer on the front four. If they can walk away from the draft being like, okay, we took a corner within the first 2 rounds. We threw a safety in there, and then you went out and you spent money on a guy on the defensive line, even though Vaughn didn't work out. Yeah, that's your best chance at plugging these holes. I don't think they're going to be able to spend their way out of it and draft their way out of it at the same time.
I definitely think this is probably the biggest offseason Brandon Beane will ever have as a general manager for this team, knowing that this team, I think for the first time, has really found their true offensive identity. And they've really leaned into it, and it's brought them a great amount of success.
You got to keep them now, though.
You do. And you have to find a way to also build that on defense. And you gotta just look, you gotta be better. And did we expect this team to make the AFC Championship? Absolutely not. But again, you have the guy. The thing is, you have the guy. You just got to do your job. You got to just some of the off seasons. I was looking at some of the players the Chiefs are bringing. It's like, man, can we at least get half of that? Like, can we inch there? Like, can we get a little bit of that? Like, we didn't have an off season where we're getting Justin Reed and Nick Bolton and Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey in the same draft. Like, we aren't drafting that good. We're not signing players that good. So what exactly are you doing to get past the Chiefs? Because you definitely don't have the huge quarterback drop off, but you're getting out coached and out general manager by this team as well. So I think
they're signing the correct depth that's turning into quality starters. Yeah. They're going out and making the moves that make sense for them for their roster. Like, was DeAndre Hopkins ever going to be like the dude there?
No, but they made sure they put a Band-Aid on that problem and they gave themselves a chance. And
they make plays.
Dean did the same thing. So I kind of want to get in the offense because that kind of ties into what I wanted to bring up next. And it is, I think, probably the second most important position in terms of a big need for this team, and it's receiver, because we've been pounding the table for a guy for a while. And I do think I like Amari Cooper. I like him as a person, like him as a player. I think he does a lot. He brought a lot of value to this offense.
I'm starting to think
I wish you luck. I wish you luck.
I think he comes back. I've been seeing everywhere that he wants to come back. The Bills want him back.
It seems like there's a mutual interest in that.
And I'm fine with it.
For me, like, I need more there. I need more. Like, and that's, I think if you're bringing Cooper back, you're okay with Brady not being balanced. Because if you have that home run hitter on the outside, like a DK Metcalf, for example, it forces Joe Brady, basically the front office, to be like, hey, we got you a guy. You need to get him involved. And I think Joe Brady's a phenomenal coordinator, but if you're allowing yourself to be more balanced, I truly think this offense will be unstoppable.
When it comes to the passing
if you can run it and throw it whenever, like, it's tough because I want to run the ball and I want to be a running offense because I think that's where the league's heading.
But it's too much.
You gotta have more. You just have to have more firepower. And some of the guys you've brought in, with the exception of James Cook, as a pass catcher, like Dalton Kincaid in that moment, you drafted him for his hands, didn't show up.
Can we retract the tape on this podcast and just say we were
we were off.
We were so fucking wrong. We were so wrong about Dalton Kincaid. I mean, we had countless conversations about he's going to be the man. He's going to be Kelsey. That's your wide receiver one.
Yeah.
Holy shit, were we wrong. We were so wrong. I mean, I'm not even saying Kincaid's shit. I mean, he had a terrible season. He did not have a good season at all. But, man, what the fuck was that? I mean, oh, my God. Yeah. And I don't even care that he tore his PCL. It's like, then why are you playing? If it hindered you that bad, at this point, what is truly the biggest difference between him and Dawson Knox?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I've said it a couple times with different people. Like, Kincaid doesn't block, so his only value is as a pass catcher. And if you're drafting him for his hands and his pass catching and his ability to separate against zone, which he was able to find a spot in the zone, you need him to catch the ball.
Yeah.
And
he's not even like a volume target either.
He's not getting the volume like Brady, and which is fine. Like, this is what this offense wants to be, and they want to run the ball and facilitate the ball through the backs and have to take their shots, accordingly. But, I just think this offense needs to be a little bit more spread out, and they need
to spread out to me.
Yeah, but it also
not one guy that got volume.
I'm saying they need to channel it in the right ways. Like, it can't all just be running the ball. You have to have guys that are,
So,
you know what I mean? Like, you have to have more from your receivers.
So we fired Ken Dorsey last year. What, week 7, 6?
Week 8, I think.
So you had a half a season with Brady. Yes, no, it wasn't his scheme.
Right.
But you went from having a Stephon Diggs that was having like an historical start to a season to just nothingness.
Yeah.
And then, not that he was great this year, but stay with me. And then you go into this year and it's everyone eats, right?
Yeah.
But you had no idea who the fuck situationally was getting the ball for the first 6-7 games of the season. It was like, all right, Shakir's going to eat up most of the volume, but like when it comes to third down, you realistically have no idea who the ball's going to. When it comes to the red zone, you just got to hope someone gets open, like no consistency. And then you get Amari Cooper, and yes, Amari Cooper brought stability to the balance to this offense to where you settled down a little bit, but then down the stretch, just like Diggs, totally disappeared. And I'm not saying it's fully on Brady, but part of that has to play a role.
It ties into his philosophy.
And that concerns me because it's like if you go out and get a guy like DK, a T. Higgins, you draft a guy, whatever you decide to do, if you're not going to use him, you're not going to be successful.
And you're not going to get the benefits of that investment. And That's the thing when if the Bills say they do go out and get a playmaker, a receiver, or whatever, they spend big money. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to bring up on this podcast. How are they going to use them? How much are they going to use them? And it's important that, and I'm sure this is going to be just. It's very obvious that they're going to talk about these things. They're gonna go over it and say, hey, Joe, are you going to give him the volume? Like, we're giving this guy $100+ million. You better have a plan in place for him. Like, how does he fit? And I think, and I don't think it's completely non-existent for Joe Brady. Like, and I know it was college, and it was an amazing receiving core he had, but they threw the piss out of the ball. Like, Joe Burrow had 64 touchdowns, and like, you have Josh Allen. Like, he can throw the ball, and if you can find a guy that works, and I think the biggest thing for me is you got to have, in those got to have it moments, you got to have those players like the Chiefs do. And I'm not asking for you to get a Hall of Fame. I'm not asking for you to get a Hall of Fame tight end or, to get these superstars, but I'm asking for you to get a guy that you can. Well, maybe you won't get a superstar, but get a guy in these moments. And Diggs never really answered the bell in these situations. No. And maybe just take another crack at it and see what you got.
The team was different. It was like, that first year we had Diggs, like you had Brown and you had Beasley and you had like just the greatest mixture that this team has had. Like, you had the deep threat, you had the route runner that was cooking everybody, and then you had the greatest fucking slot receiver this team's.
And that doesn't even mention how Gabe Davis was your wide receiver 4 making the big plays as well.
And he was money. And it was like you went from that to, okay, John Brown aged out, Cole Beasley aged out. In those current moments, you didn't plug the holes. Gabe Davis had the big game. He's your wide receiver 2. That didn't work out. And then it was just all on Diggs, and now it's all on Allen. I part of me is like, did this past game just stay afloat because you have Josh Allen? And it's hard to like decipher because obviously if you have a worse quarterback, you don't know where you're going to be in general. But I worry that some of it's getting masked by greatness, and that is a concern.
Yeah. We've talked about this offense, I think, a good amount. And it, like I said, not worried about Joe Brady, not worried about the future of this offense. Obviously, I have a lot more concern for the defensive side of the ball because it's been the unit that's let this team down the most in these moments. And look, it's just not been good enough. The Bills' offense is, really Josh Allen has delivered in these moments. And it comes down to that for me. Let's tie up into one last segment here before we wrap it up and go into some other episodes later throughout the offseason. But where do we go next? Where do you go from here, Mike? If let's say you're handed the title of general manager for the Buffalo Bills and you're basically saying, hey, this is what we have. We got $25-30 million to spend. They have 2 second-round picks, first-round pick. Where are you going? Where are you starting? What are you looking at? Who are you talking to? Kind of give us your runway on that.
Do you know what the max amount of cap space we can create is if we restructure people?
Realistically, like I said, probably be up to 25 to 30. Just, we could probably get more. There's always more money in the banana stand, but realistically, that's what we're going to be operating with.
I guess it depends what Brandon Beane deems to be his top priority. Mm-hmm. What's your top priority and what's my top priority and what's his could be 3 very different things. Yeah. Brandon Beane could have walked away from that game thinking, wow, I still haven't solved the problem on the front 4. You could be like, wow, they need a top end receiver to be able to pick up the load. And mine could be, the safety tandem's terrible. That needs help. And so it depends where he wants to spend his money. Obviously, you're going to have to start extending some of these guys. You're going to have to extend Bernard. You're going to have to extend Shakir. You're going to have to extend Benford. That's locked, signed, sealed, delivered. You have to determine whether or not you want to pay Greg Rousseau. In my opinion, do not. I do not think he's going to be worth the money that he's going to warrant out in the open market. I think you just got to let him go. And see what's out there. Like, if you can go out and I do not think we'll get a guy like DK. I mean, he just said he doesn't want to go to the Patriots. It's a great organization, all that, but I don't think he wants to play in this kind of weather or in this environment for 17 games. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest splash move that they're going to go out and make this offseason is they're going to go out and try to get a top-end pass rusher again. I think they're going to go out, and because there's names. I mean, if these guys are truly available, if Myles Garrett's really available, if Max Crosby's actually available, you need to call. You need to at least call.
You need to have the conversation at the very least.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Max Crosby or Myles Garrett wins you the Super Bowl, but it sure as shit helps.
Yeah.
You know.
I would agree with you there. I think for me, like, I look at this roster and I feel really good about this offense. I feel really good. This is probably the strongest I've felt about this offense. And if they add a top tier playmaker or not, I still think this unit's going to be good enough to get you to a Super Bowl as long as Josh Allen's the quarterback. And it's easy to say, but the way the running game works, the way they marry that with, play action and the 6 offensive linemen and, how they kind of incorporate it all, it's a beautiful thing all season. And, it had its moments and its hiccups, but for the most part, this was a very, very good offense. And I think probably the best offensive unit I think I've ever seen, maybe other than that 2021 year where they had that, the perfect game against the Patriots. But besides that, I really think this offense is damn close to being complete, to at least in the vision of what Joe Brady wants. So I'm looking at defense.
I think it's more likely than not they kind of run it back and then just add a guy. I think it's more likely than not they probably sign a 1-year deal to Cooper. They bring back Matt Collins, and then they bring in just a fucking veteran guy that can play.
Like you talked about, I look at the defense, and I'm looking at the thing that has let us down in all of these games, and that has been pass rushing. Like, you brought in Von Miller to be that guy, and for the first half of his first season here, he was that guy. But his knee did not hold up, and the age did not hold up, and there's an out, and I think they take that out.
Have to.
And to me, if you basically say, if Brandon Beane, makes him take a pay cut and Von Miller's on this team next year, this team is not making the Super Bowl.
He's completely, it's not even just that he's lost his step. He just looks completely uninterested.
He definitely doesn't have the passion he does as he did as a younger player.
No.
And, he certainly provides great leadership. He's great for the locker room, whatever. If you want to give him, an assistant title, sure. Like, have him on the coaching staff, sure. Do that. But you really need on-field impact players. And like you said, if Vegas even listens, you have to have that conversation. Now, I know that Andrew Berry, I didn't want to cut you off as you were talking about Myles Garrett. He did say today at the Senior Bowl that they're not even taking any calls for Myles Garrett.
They shouldn't.
But which you're right, you shouldn't. But you definitely need to go around and look around the league and say, hey, is this guy? Are you willing to listen? Can we have a conversation here? And I think you definitely. You're playing into the possibility Greg Rousseau as a number 2 edge rush would be freaking awesome. Like, as your number 2 guy for at least a year. You don't have to pay him, right? But next year, if you're going in the year with, Greg Rousseau as your 2.
Is Hendrickson a free agent?
No, he's not. But if you're going in, he's got one more year. But Cincinnati wouldn't even entertain that idea. But if you're, like I said, if you're going into the year with him as your number 2 and a superstar opposite him, I feel very good about that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I don't think we talked enough about was defensive tackle. Daquan Jones, who had a very, very good season last year.
I didn't notice him once.
Didn't have a good year at all.
Whole season. Didn't even notice he was on the field.
And what is the number 1 biggest weakness with this defensive line?
The run.
That, yes, you're right. It ties into that. They're not big. They're too small. Yeah. They're tiny. Yep. And that's what the Ravens, yes, they were able to stop the Ravens, but Derrick Henry still ripped off 20-yard runs. It was inevitable. You need to have somebody in there.
Ate this defense alive.
Oh, my God. I don't even want to think about that because you would have ran for 200 on this defense.
Yep.
But like I said, you need to add some beef, and whether that's in the draft, but this is a very deep class in terms of defensive tackle. And you have 3 top 60 picks. That is something
you're supposed to be that guy.
Dwayne Carter's more of a pass rush specialist. He definitely popped a little bit against the run, but again, he's not like built. He's not like
I thought he was a beefy guy.
He's not too beefy. He's really not.
This team needs a star Latulele.
Yeah, okay. But they need like a one tech. They need a true defensive tackle, a guy that's can be able to disrupt and get in the backfield. And this defensive line needs to be more complete. They need a guy. They need a game wrecking guy. And like you said, safety would probably be my number 3 priority because I feel good about Taylor Rapp, and I do think safety is an easier position to evaluate and get talent at. So I feel good about Milano Bernard. I feel very good about those two, and Taron Johnson, Benford. It's not an easy fix, but there's certainly a blueprint out there that can make this defense a top, maybe 15 to 20 defense they were this year to a top 5 defense. Like it's
top 5.
There's an avenue to it for sure. I think the avenue definitely starts with going out and getting a game wrecking edge rusher. Like you look at it, Mike. Every great defense in this league has a number 1 guy. Like if you pull it up now, you can pull it up now. Look at the top defenses. Every unit is gonna have a name that you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Texans will probably be there. You got Will Anderson. You got Daniil Hunter. You got 2 number 1s essentially. If you want to run through the list here, but I just feel like that's the starting.
Would you go out and get a guy like Khalil Mack?
Probably not. It's like 35.
You don't think he has any juice left?
That to me is just like the same as running it back with.
Oh, here's a weird one. Hassan Reddick.
I don't know. Like if you think you can kind of get that season he had with Philly out of him, absolutely.
I feel like you could. I feel like that's the kind of guy. It's like,
but like, hey, that might be a discount because of the season he had with the Jets.
Right,
that might be an opportunity to strike.
That
might be something. We will do episodes, about free agent guys and guys we like. Funny enough, you would mention Mac Hollins last year, which a lot of people have forgotten about and probably don't even remember. You had mentioned him as a free agent target, and he ended up having very, very solid season for the Bills.
And you know who showed up during the playoffs?
Mac Hollins. Yeah, number 13.
And Curtis Samuel.
Yep. And Curtis Samuel, you're right.
Yep.
Caught a touchdown. But yeah, I think that puts a bow on everything. We kind of did the best we could at analyzing this game, and eventually it didn't go our way. And that's the sad, unfortunate truth. And look, I don't think there's a better fan base in the world, and I know I'm biased, and I'm a part of this, but I can speak for this fan base, the people I interact with here on this platform, on Spotify, on YouTube, on all of our accounts, like great people. And this fan base deserves it. It's like another family, and it's hopefully one day our time comes, because we certainly been put through some shit. So but yeah, we do thank everybody for a great season. It was, we overexceeded a lot of expectations. We didn't get the job done, unfortunately, but it was fun covering this team. Always fun talking about this team, and there's a lot of passion involved in this. And you'll see some more episodes from us as we lead up throughout the offseason, free agency and whatnot. We're going to probably do some more NFL-based content as well, Mike and I. We're going to talk about the head coaching stuff going on. We'll give you a little bit of that, and we're kind of going to dig in a little bit of a couple different bags this offseason as we kind of move on here and try to forget about this game. But thank everybody for tuning in. As always, we'll be back again soon here, trying to go over some of the Bills free agents. We'll review them, kind of give our takes on those guys and
draft prospects, the combine.
The draft. Yeah, the whole 9 yards. So thank you, everybody. You'd find us anywhere you get your visual and audio viewing pleasure: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Mike, thank you for coming on as always. Everybody, thank you for coming in and tuning into us. Everybody have a good night, and go Bills.
Cue the Mr. Brightside outro.
Oh, boy.